It's 6:40 a.m., the 11th of October 2025. In the southern South China Sea, the USS Arleigh Burke suddenly catches three fast-approaching sonar blips, unknown torpedoes, closing in hard. Alarms scream through the metal corridors. Sailors sprint to battle stations, hands gripping cold steel as red lights flash. Outside, waves crash against the hull, radar screens flicker, and the control room hums with tension. The captain's voice cuts through, "Brace for impact!" Seconds later, dull thuds echo deep below deck. The destroyer jolts, pipes rattle, panels shake, smoke curls from a side vent. Water seeps into a lower compartment, but the ship stays afloat. Then, over the comms, a faint report. Another vessel, Chinese markings, also damaged. Two warships, one narrow sea, and no clear answers. Above the rising haze, sailors stare toward the horizon where gray silhouettes multiply. Backup ships? Reinforcements? No one speaks. The ocean holds its breath before the next move. The South China Sea isn't just water. It's a conveyor belt for the everyday fuel for trucks, grains for kitchens, chips for phones. If that belt snaps, prices jump, shelves thin out, and trust in American security guarantees takes a hit. On this route, the USS Arleigh Burke escorts tankers and box ships, a quiet shield that most people never see. 65 nautical miles from Second Thomas Shoal, the destroyer kept station while China's Haijing 3104 shadowed nearby. Crews knew each other's habits by now. Voice checks, turn patterns, the way a radar trace briefs. The Burke carried Spy 1D radar for air and surface tracks. It stitches a big picture fast. And the AN divided by SKU 53C sonar for what lurks below. It hears trouble before eyes can find it. Nobody expected torpedoes at dawn. The first harsh pings felt like a glitch. Then the pattern solidified. Three shapes, fast and low. Minutes later, two ships reported light damage and localized flooding. Smoke curled from vents, pumps roared. Washington elevated to DEFCON 3, a readiness posture that tightens decision time. Beijing surged. Type 54 Ampere's frigates from Hainan, quiet, steady, message received. ASEAN called for an international investigation, but the sea moved faster than diplomacy. Insurance brokers recalculated risk in real time. Shippers debated reroutes. Allies watched for what the US would do next, because hesitation echoes farther than thunder. The Burke's objective now was simple and brutal. Keep the lane open, prevent miscalculation, and avoid the single mistake that turns sparks into a fire. If you were on that deck smelling cordite and salt, would you press 1 to hold the line or 9 to strike first? 6:47 a.m. The sea is calm, but the bridge isn't. The sonar operator calls out new contacts, small, scattered, uncertain. The captain orders the ship to go active. A deep pulse rolls through the water. What comes back freezes the room. Multiple returns, not fish, not debris metal. Condition 1, battle stations. The order echoes down steel corridors. Hatches slam, boots pound the deck. On screen, the SPY-1D radar paints fresh shapes, surface wakes that shouldn't be there. The ocean feels alive, like it's breathing hostility. The first move is defense. The crew deploys acoustic decoys, small towed pods that mimic the destroyer's signature to lure torpedoes off course. The ship slows to reduce noise, turns slightly to port, and fires Mach 46 countermeasure charges. Each blast creates a false target bubble underwater, buying precious seconds. Topside gunners scan for periscopes or drones. Nothing visible, just horizon and haze. The radio crackles. Maintain position. Do not fire unless fired upon. The words hang heavy. Nobody knows what counts as fired upon anymore. Minutes drag. One sonar contact fades, decoy worked. Another splits in two. Could be wire-guided, mutters the ops officer. That means control from somewhere nearby, maybe Haijing 3000, 104, maybe something deeper. A dull thud ripples through the hull, not a hit, but close enough to rattle mugs. Pressure sensors spike. Launch counter 2, the captain snaps. The ship reacts instantly. Compressed air hisses, another decoy launches. Beneath the waves, explosions bloom in slow motion. Across the channel, Haijing 3104 has gone dark. No radio, no lights. Only its radar sweeping wide like a lighthouse. Two warships drift inside a narrow corridor of fear. Every move watched, every silence loaded. Damage control teams sweep the lower decks, mark doors, check hot pipes, rig extra pumps. In combat, the TAO reviews returns. Classifications bounce between possible torpedo and unknown mechanical. AP-8 patrol plane reports transient splashes, then loses them in sea clutter. Somewhere starboard, screws turn slow, deliberate. The helmsman eases 2 degrees to port, keeping the ship's shadow off the contact, buying space without blinking first. The last ping echoes, then fades. For the first time in minutes, no one speaks. The captain lowers his headset, eyes on the horizon. "No one fires first," he says quietly. "Not today." 6:59 a.m. The sea glows gray under thin clouds. Both ships drift at low speed, holding distance, waiting for the other to blink. The Burke's bridge smells of coffee and metal routine mixed with tension. Every screen hums. Every sailor listens for the next sound that shouldn't exist. Then it comes a faint mechanical whine. The sonar operator stiffens. Multiple prop signatures, bearing 085 shallow. The captain glances at the plot. That's too close for comfort. He orders the ship to turn 3 degrees starboard, presenting a slimmer profile. The ship groans under the maneuver, water foaming off its bow. "Deploy Nixie," he adds. A long cable spools out behind the destroyer, an acoustic lure that mimics engine noise to distract incoming torpedoes. It hums faintly, whispering safety in a sea that offers none. Across the horizon, Haijing 3104 suddenly accelerates. Its deck gun swivels not aimed, but watching. Radar spikes bounce between both ships, each reading the other's intentions. For a second, the world's 2 biggest powers stare through electronics and distance, daring the other to miscalculate. Inside the Combat Information Center, officers whisper updates. New contact surface drone, 2.5 miles, closing fast. The crew braces, guns elevate. The Burke fires a warning burst, 30mm tracers slicing water just ahead of the drone. It stops, drifts, then vanishes from radar. Nobody cheers. Nobody relaxes. Moments later, the Haijing transmits a coded signal short, sharp, impossible to read. A minute passes. Then another contact appears. This time airborne, small, low, skimming the waves. The CIWS turret hums, ready but silent. The captain hesitates. Firing first could spark a war. Waiting could lose one. He watches the screen as the blip grows closer, heartbeat steady. "Track only," he says. The crew holds their breath. Outside, the horizon flickers with heat haze and threat. For 12 full minutes, both ships dance in silence, bound by fear and discipline. The ocean has turned into a chessboard where every move costs lives. If you were in that command chair, 1 heartbeat away from war, would you press 1 to hold fire or 9 to strike before it's too late? 7:12 a.m. A strange stillness grips the bridge. The sea looks calm, but the instruments don't lie. The sonar feed flickers, then fills with static. Every channel bursts into noise. "We're being jammed," the technician says, voice tight. Seconds later, a sharp metallic tone cuts through the interference. "Not a torpedo. Smaller," the operator mutters. On the camera, tiny shapes skim the waves, metallic, fast, erratic. "Autonomous underwater vehicles. They're using a swarm," says the XO. "Bring CIWS online," the captain orders. The close-in weapon system hums alive, barrels turning with mechanical precision. Sensors struggle to filter noise from threat. The sea becomes a blur of motion. Half the swarm dives deep, half races for the stern. Fire decoy pattern delta. Charges splash, detonating in sequence, throwing up a curtain of bubbles. For a few seconds, the ocean seems to boil. Then impact. A dull thud along the aft hull. The ship jolts. Contact aft. No breach. One AUV scrapes the armor, spins away trailing oil and foam. It wasn't meant to explode, it was mapping the ship's defenses. Through the mist, Haijing 3104 holds steady, silent and unreadable. Whether it commands the swarm or only watches, no one can tell. The Burke steadies, smoke curling from her stern. Damage control reports minor flooding. No casualties. Moments later, the swarm vanishes, signals blinking out one by one until the sonar shows only empty water. The crew exchanges quick looks. They know the message. This wasn't an attack. It was data collection. For years, standoffs here meant warnings and rhetoric. Today, they mean code and algorithms, machines learning how to fight before humans even decide. The rules have changed, and no one's ready for what comes next. 7:26 a.m. The first explosion comes from nowhere, a sharp crack to port that slams the hull and rattles every bolt. The crew grips whatever's near. "All stations report," calls the captain. No breach, no fire, but the sea outside is alive again. 3 more returns flare on radar. Objects inbound, 200 knots, low in the water. The bridge erupts into motion. The CIWS spins, the phalanx guns whining. The Burke surges to flank speed, foam shearing off its bow. Launch decoys. A cluster of flares hiss across the surface, confusing the targeting systems. "Countermeasures active," calls the EW officer. The ship shakes as bursts fire off. Metal against water, light against shadow. Then visual contact. A sleek silver shape bursts through the waves. The forward gun roars. 30mm tracers cutting the morning air. The round hits short, geysers rising like fists from the sea. The second volley finds its mark. A bright flash, then smoke. Cheers start but die quickly. Another contact appears, closer. "Sizz, engage!" The turret swivels. A steady thump 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 as tungsten rounds rip into the waterline. One drone detonates, another veers off, trailing fire. The shockwave rolls across the deck. The smell of burning oil and salt fills the air. Damage control reports flooding in the aft engine room. Pumps engage. Men wade through ankle-deep water, passing tools hand to hand in dim red light. On the bridge, the captain studies the tactical screen. One last contact. Still approaching. Fast. Target at 150 closing. Range? 800 yards and dropping. Fire CRAM. The launcher on the aft deck ignites smoke, flame, a streak of light cutting across the dawn. The missile meets the target mid-crest. The explosion lights the sea like sunrise. For 3 seconds, there is only brilliance, and then only steam. Silence. The crew exhales. The radar clears. The Haijing 3104 turns away, leaving only black trails on the horizon. The captain grips the console, jaw tight. "Battle over," he says softly, but no one really believes it. If you were standing on that deck, smoke still rising, both sides one spark from war, would you press 1 to hold the peace, or 9 to finish the fight? 8:04 a.m. Smoke lingers above the calm water. The Burke's deck gleams with seawater and sweat. Damage crews move quietly, patching, pumping, counting. The adrenaline drains away, leaving a silence that hums after the fight. From the bridge, the captain watches the haze of Haijing 3104 fade into distance. No shots fired in anger, yet the sea feels changed, fragile, electric. What began as an accident now hangs one heartbeat from disaster. Washington urges restraint. Beijing calls for investigation. Both mean the same thing. No one's ready for the next step. In the mess hall, sailors sit in soaked uniforms, replaying every second. No laughter, no boasting, just the quiet realization of how close they came to war. Outside, rescue drones hover low, scanning for debris. They find only fragments of metal and slicks of oil, proof of a fight that didn't happen. By midday, insurance firms raise rates, trade routes shift, and embassies exchange sharp, careful words. ASEAN demands an inquiry. Patrol zones widen under the guise of transparency. Families refresh phones, waiting for a short text, "I'm safe." On deck, engineers check heat scars on the CIWS barrels and salt burns on the hull. In sonar, technicians replay the jamming burst frame by frame, searching patterns inside the noise. There are no answers, just more uncertainty. Hours later, Headlines flash. US and China in naval incident, no casualties reported. Markets shake, analysts speculate, and admirals choose their words like surgeons. But for the crew aboard Arleigh Burke, it's simpler. They've seen how fast peace can vanish. As sunlight cuts through the haze, the captain stands alone. Salt crusts his boots. Smoke stains his cuffs. He looks east toward Hainan, west toward Palawan, two edges of the same storm. "We held today," he says softly. "Tomorrow? Who knows?" If you were in his place, one decision from war, would you press 1 to keep the calm or 9 to finish the fight?